Hey everyone, what's up? Yeah, you see the title here on this live stream, and I thank you all for watching. As you come in, hopefully, if you look at the link and click on it, you see the title here. Basically, I'm here to talk about the fact that in about 4 hours, 4 hours and 7 minutes to be exact, um, the vote for the future of net neutrality will occur. And mostly a lot of people that are against this vote happening by the FCC, uh, pretty much have confirmed that there is definitely a strong chance that it's going to go in the FCC's favor of 3-2 of repelling net neutrality. Now, there is no surprise so far that some people have actually come out doing a lot of people's videos here on YouTube, Daily Motion, Vimo, VO, um, Facebook and all that, have come out and pretty much said, Ed, that, well, this is going to be a surprise to hear, but there have been some people that have come out and said, hey, this net neutrality thing is no big deal. It's unnecessary. And this is just from regular people that have come out and said that, hey, maybe there's a reason, maybe it's good that this is going to happen. Let me explain to those that may not understand what net neutrality is. Right now, the internet you are enjoying and will continue to enjoy for at least another year, maybe so, depending on your provider, is because of net neutrality. There is no doubt that service providers of the internet have tried their best, even during this net neutrality era, to try to throttle the internet or at least try to control some aspects of it. You always wonder why certain things go slow when you go to certain sites, or why occasionally your provider likes to do updates, even if it's during the day and you're trying to use the internet or you're trying to be on the phone, and all of a sudden everything just gets cut off for about 5 something minutes and then it comes back on. It's because your provider is trying their best to control the internet. They're trying to control what you see and do. And their excuse might be, oh, well, we're just doing maintenance to give you a better service. Really? Really, you're trying your best to give us a better service. Well, let me ask you this. Let me ask those providers this. If you're trying your best to give us a better service, then why is it necessary to keep constantly interrupting our service as we speak to do your maintenance? I mean, I can understand if perhaps um, you know, I can understand perhaps if, there's a reason for the maintenance, but it's always like it seems to be anytime someone can get up around 3 o'clock in the morning just to get ready for work because they got to be at work at 5 or 4:30, and they'll try to look at the internet before they go, and they can't because all of a sudden they'll notice that the modem is all of a sudden acting up, and they don't know why, and then for 5 minutes they got to wait until it goes back to normal. Do you not think we don't know what you're trying to do? We do. We do understand what you're trying to do, and we don't like it. And now in a few hours, there's a chance that, as many people fear, that the providers will have almost free reign. Now, there have been several news reports and sources and articles that have come out in the past several days that have said that there's a new deal struck between the FCC and the FTC, basically saying that the FTC is going to police the internet and make sure ISP providers keep their promises and don't screw with the internet for the time being. Because one of the things that we have to look at as a silver lining, even if this vote passes and this net neutrality, repeal of net neutrality occurs or starts to take shape, one of the silver linings we have to look at is, at least for some of us, depending on our providers, on our internet providers, most, if not some of us, will still have decent internet. Now, according to the Humanist report and several others, there is a chance you might see some slight changes here and there occur throughout the next year. Comcast, according to THR, the Humanist report, has already attempted to do this. They've already attempted to kind of change things up, and they're predicting that somewhere between the ending of this vote, mostly starting around next year, between the start of next year and the expiration of their agreement under the current net neutrality rules, that Comcast will try to, how do I put this? They will try to give us an example of what they plan to do as far as service is concerned, because one of the worries a lot of people have is the fact that we're going to end up getting something similar to what other countries get at times, and that is tiers, that is packages, service packages, that is upgrade in internet price, the whole 9 yards. And maybe a lot of us could understand if perhaps the reason they're doing this is because they want us to know what it's like in these other countries, then maybe we shouldn't consider ourselves better, and that this is one way to show that, hey, we're kind of on that same level. Maybe some of us could understand that if that was the case, but even so, it's like, look, those countries, it all depends on their government. And some of their governments, no offense, are kind of backwards. Our government is supposed to be about the future, about going forward. And repelling net neutrality is not the way of doing it. Basically, you're going backwards. You're going back to the times of dial-up, to where even if I'm doing a video like this live, you could barely see my face. And I have videos on my YouTube channel that I did back in 2006 when I lived in Kansas. 2005, 2006 when I lived in Kansas. They were not live streaming, they were just regular video. You could see me, yes. But the way I'd be going would be like this. You know, yeah, you could see it and you can make out what you see, but mostly it wouldn't be at the levels that we have now. And a lot of people concur with that. It's like this, we concur, a lot of people concur with that. And it's not just regular consumers like myself, folks, or you. It's people in Congress, the House of Representatives, Senate, people in the White House. It's people of these bigger community online services like Amazon, Netflix, Walmart, Hulu, you name it. They're all basically feeling the same way. It's like they don't want to have to deal with the fact that somebody could be watching watching Netflix, and all of a sudden, not even, what is it, 5 minutes in, it stops, and then they have to wait another 10 minutes for it to load up so they can watch the rest. They don't want to have to sit in the living room for like 3 hours just to finish an hour and a half or 2 hour movie, or 2.5 hour movie. They don't want to do that. They want to sit in the living rooms and have to go through 3 hours or 2.5 hours to watch a 2 hour movie or an 80-minute movie. And that's what they fear. But the silver lining that I look at in all of this is we have at least until almost late next year. According to reports, after this vote passes, sometime next year in early 2018 is when it's going to go to the federal registration. And according to reports everywhere, from the Humanist Report, Young Turks, CNN, Fox News, ABC, NBC, you name it. You name it. They're all basically saying the same thing. And even every article from The Verge, Variety, Fortune, all of them, New York Post, Time, Life, Time Magazine, Life Magazine, they're all saying the same thing. And that is basically that once the announcement is made of when this is going to go to federal registration to be officially approved and begun on its road to officially repelling neutrality, even before the agreements between the providers expire, there are reports and sources going around which are legitimate that say that every person, every organization, every political organization, group, Congress, ALCU, uh, FM, or whatever, FM, what do you want to call it? You know, affirm, if you will. And all these political groups and even these services and attorneys and Congress people, they're all ready. They are all set and ready. They have people on the ready for when this moment happens so that even if the federal registration says, okay, we're going to sign this in, they will not be. The thing is, once that happens, they're still going to have a long, hard road to follow because even if it gets signed in, that's when a lot of these groups with the lawyers that have been through this again, have been through this before, are going to get ready to take it to court, take it to the Court of Appeals, take it to the Supreme Court if they have to, and say, look, this shouldn't happen. Here's why. And they got all the evidence apparently gathered up in front of them. Every every one of these sources. Um, hold on for a sec. Every one of these sources. I thought I heard something, but anyway, every one of these sources have lawyers, attorneys, you know, at the ready. They have people that have backgrounds in this at the ready. Even the people that founded the internet and the World Wide Web are at the ready to defend net neutrality, even if it goes to federal registration. They're ready to do this. And when Ajit Pai says in a recent interview on HBO that there are risks, he's not just talking oh, there are risks that providers may do this. Is despite maybe having this partnership with the FTC to police the internet to make sure providers don't. But when I hear him say risk, I also hear out of him that he knows that there's going to be not only risk besides what many people fear, but there are going to be risk legally. That he's going to that there are going to be risk legally for the FCC and himself because because I think he realizes that he's going to end up in court along with the FCC over what happened. They're going to point out that hey, right now the FTC is in a lawsuit with the AT&T, stuff like that. Oh, and by the way, there's still like the 2 million, 2.5 million or billion comments that were fraudulized or fraudinized, if you will, fake, stolen and all that to make it look like people were in favor of repelling net neutrality, stuff like that. And then all these other things in between, like showing that this goes against constitutional rights. This is egregious and capricious, as Angry Joe put it, and all these other things that people point out. And when I hear IG Pi say there's risk, it's not just risk of he knows providers may try to get on, try to fly under the radar and try to throttle or do this and that because now they'll have the power as soon as the registration says okay. But he realizes the risk at hand is lawsuits, of going to court, of having to plead his case and his reasoning. And people are going to point out all that I've mentioned, including him having a secret behind closed doors meeting with Verizon in Washington over the past week before this vote happened. So a lot of this is going to come to the forefront. And what's going to happen in the end, folks, is that between today, when this vote happens, in between today and between the timeline of when federal registration says, okay, let's sign this in, and expiration dates of net neutrality agreements with companies like Comcast, Time Warner, Verizon, you name it. Between that time, a lot of legal in court battling is going to go down, and it's going to go down in our favor. It's going to go down in our favor because we've been through this before. They're going to point out, I mean, one of the things that's going to be pointed out is, hey, how many times have we come up with this? How many times have we gone through this? Just because let's be honest. There have been several times where proposed plans to try to control the internet, or at least do something of that matter, from SOPA, PIPA, you name it, in a sense have kind of been passed, but even if the vote to kind of make them a rule or try to pass them had been, in their favor, in the end, what has happened to SOPA? What has happened to PIPA? What has happened to all these other ideals to try to repel net neutrality or control the internet in some facet? They've all gone to court and they've all lost because of the fact that it goes against everything this country stands for. Now, some might say, now there are regular people like you and me, regular consumers that might say, hey, look, you don't know the whole story. Maybe IG Pie does have our best interest. You don't know the whole story. Maybe there's going to be a reasoning. And people would have a fair argument there. People would have a fair argument of saying, hey, maybe there's more to his story. Maybe you don't know the whole truth. Well, if that is true, then why is he coming up with all these different excuses in the eyes of a lot of people? Why is he coming up with these different changes to try to appeal to the consumer, appeal to the companies that are against this, appeal to the politicians and people in the business? Is this and try to tell them that, hey, this is a great idea. Why does he keep trying to come up with these different scenarios and plans? Yes. Hmm? Why is he doing that if there is a positive to it, if there's some goodness to it, if there's truth to it, if there's a legit reasoning for it? You know why? You know why? Because there isn't. You know why he hasn't come out and said something that, tells the whole truth? Because he knows what's going on is complete BS. The Democrats that are a part of this in the FCC, they know it's BS. And the only hope we can get is if one Republican votes against the Repel, because maybe they're going to realize, oh crap, we're going to be in for, and God excuse my language for saying this, a shitstorm of trouble if this goes down. And they know it. They know it. Now, here's what I've always thought. Unless, because a lot of people are blaming Verizon, saying Verizon is behind this. That Verizon is puppeteering Pi to do this. And I've always thought to myself, well, why would Verizon be the main villain in this? Why would they be controlling Pi to go this direction? And you know what I think it is, in my opinion? It's maybe because Verizon is sick and tired of being on the bottom of the hill when it comes to internet and cable service, internet, phone, and cable services. Maybe they're sick and tired of it because with net neutrality, they can't really do much. Even though they've attempted to do stuff in the past that have been caught, they can't do anything. And it's put them in a scenario to where they're at the bottom of the pool. Now they want to rise to the top, and they realize, hey, here's our best chance to do that. And maybe financially they're not doing so well, but they're not letting on about it. Maybe that's the reason. We don't know. Again, and some people may argue in favor of Pi's decision. They may say, well, he's talking about innovation and making things better. Well, then what's the purpose for the innovation and making things better? What would be the innovation? What's the reasoning? And I think the legit truth he should be giving us is, yeah, this would allow the ISPs to charge you more, maybe even go into direction of service packages. But here's the truth he should give us. And that truth is the reason they would do that is because they need our money to make these innovations happen. Like, yeah, they have the money, but instead of spending their money, they want our money to make it happen. Why don't you just admit that? Why don't you just admit that and say, hey, look, this is why we're doing it. This is why we would give them the opportunity to charge you for different service packages or charge you more for your internet as is without the service packages because they need your money to make these so-called innovations that they want to do happen. They don't want to spend their money, they want your money. And it's not just us that they would do that. They're asking that about. It's the companies that rely on them that they're asking that from. But they're not straight out saying it. They're trying to come up with different ways of twisting the truth and twisting the wording and saying this is what's going on. This is why. Okay, okay, you give some good valid points, but what's the real reasoning? What's the real reasoning behind it? And you know what people are going to point out? There is no real reasoning. There is no real reasoning besides the fact that if you want to do these innovations, you're too selfish, too selfish and greedy to spend your own company's money, which you probably make tons of. You're probably in the billions, if not trillions, net worth, net worth category. You probably have enough money to do so. Yet you don't want to do it because you're selfish and greedy, and you'd rather have us be charged for these different packages or increased internet price, so you can end up so you can have us pay for your innovations on internet. That's why you're doing it. And that's the truth, I think, in my opinion. That's the truth. They want us to pay for these innovations. Oh, you want faster internet? No problem. No problem. We're going to give you that. We plan to make that an innovation. We plan to do that. But oh, by the way, we forgot to tell you, we're not paying for it. You are. And that's the thing. That's the thing. They want us to pay for it. That's the real truth behind all these changes. Oh, it'll open the door for more innovation and stuff like this and information and da 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 and ingenuity and da 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 da. Yeah, but what they're not telling us, in my opinion, and I can see this a mile away, is they want us to pay for it, not them. And that's wrong. Because if they have the money to give us these services in the first place and expand on them, then why don't they use that same money to create these innovations and these to go in the direction with these innovations and intrigues that they want to try and help the internet be better and all that? Why don't they do it? Because they're too greedy and selfish and they know it. But you know what? It's not going to help them in the end. Because all the evidence that I've mentioned, all the evidence that the Humanities Report has mentioned, the Young Turks have mentioned, people in mass media like ABC, CBS, NBC, CNN, Fox, you name it, MSNBC, you name it, whether they support it or they don't, they have pretty much all come out. Variety, Fortune, Forbes, you know, WSG, Washington Street Journal, New York Post, San Francisco Chronicle, you name it. All of them have pointed out the same thing through different wording, but the same thing that even if this vote passes and this Repel passes, the vote to make this plan a reality passes, that every organization, every association, every politician, every attorney, governing attorney, you name it, anybody that has a say in the internet and supports net neutrality, the same people that went to war and went to battle two years ago, or last year, as a matter of fact, are going to be going at it again. And once again, as one person said at the end of an article, it's going to be deja vu all over again. And what that deja vu means is it's going to go back and forth. It's going to delay any kind of change that the providers may want to try. And in the end, it's not going to do IG the FCC, the FTC, or any of the internet providers any good because there's too much evidence going against them, and it's going to allow them to win this time. It's too much. That's why, as I say in the title of this video, why I say, hey, that even if the vote happens, we will still win in the end. That we will still win even if the vote passes. Because again, you got to look at the timeline as to when certain events will occur. For example, when they talk about this vote after it passes, should it pass, if not by some miraculous miracle, one of the Republicans sees is the shitstorm heading their way and be like, oh, I can't, I'm not going to be part of that. Here, I'm against it. I'm against this Repel, whatever. But let's say everything happens the way people are predicting. According to reports, it would be around early 2018 when the federal registration would be given, would be, the FCC would turn over the vote and all that to the FTC, this plan to the, not the FTC, but the federal registration to sign and make it, and basically take that next step to making it a reality. But here's the thing, time-wise, early 2018 can mean anywhere from January to about April of that year, of next year. So anytime between the first 4 months is when they could decide, if you will, whether or not they want to sign this. And here's what's going to happen in those first 4 months. Keep this in mind. According to reports, everybody that I've mentioned are going to have the legal teams on the ready so that when possibly the date and time as to when the federal registration is going to be given the plan signed, that's when they're going to go into action. They might even go into action a little after the first of the year. They're going to give it time. They're going to be like, okay, you won this round, IGPI, but guess what? You're not going to win the battle. You're not going to win the war because it's going to be the same result as last time. You guys are going to go down. And we've got enough evidence and everything to point at the fact that what you're doing is wrong. We got enough evidence to point at the fact that you're doing this for greed, for greed and nothing else. And you don't have no reasoning for it. And one of the biggest evidences they're going to have against them is they weren't listening, not even to the people in Congress, Democrat and even Republican and Independent, that told them, hey, delay this damn thing. They didn't even, they got that evidence that they didn't listen to people in Washington. They didn't listen to the people. They didn't listen to anybody that were pointing out the freaking facts of what they're doing is wrong. And all that, coupled with all the other evidence they have and reasoning, from RG having a secret meeting with Verizon, from him mocking the people, saying us we're desperate, stuff like that, pointing out, what's going on with AT&T and FTC right now, pointing out all these 2 million, 2.5 million fake, comments, people having their identity stolen, obviously saying, hey, they're in favor of net neutrality being repelled, which they weren't. All this evidence, basically, there's so much on the table and ready to go from all these people, all these organizations, all these associations, all these political people, that I guarantee you, well, maybe I don't guarantee, but I believe and I feel that before agreement, Comcast's current agreement under the net neutrality rules, not to mess with anything, expires, that's when a ruling by the courts is going to come down saying net neutrality is going to remain and that this plan of IGPIs is null and void. Yeah. So look at it this way. The first 4 months, first 3 to 4 months are early 2018. Any time between then is when the federal registration can sign it for this thing to happen. But between then, and even maybe even a little before, and between then and up to September, basically the first 9 months, that's what you got to keep an eye on. Because even let's say they sign it in February, you've got 7 months. And that 7 months, a lot can happen. And you know what could really happen? Is a lot of these agreements that expire either next year or the following year might be extended depending on how long this goes. Because by the companies, by the ISP providers like Comcast and Time Warner and all them, because by extending them, in their minds, the reason they would try to extend, if that comes down to it, for them, is this court battle continues on, even if we get close to the expiration of Comcast's agreement. The only reason they would extend it is because they would be unsure of what the outcome could be. They would extend it. Time Warner, all of them would extend it because of the fact that they would be unsure of what the outcome is going to be in the end. So in other words, if they extend it and let's say net neutrality stays, it makes them look good because then they can go back and say, oh, yeah, well, we knew net neutrality was going to remain. And that's why we made these extensions because we want to ensure you guys that you were going to keep your net neutrality. Yeah, that's what those providers will do. And don't be surprised if you see apologies coming in all over the place around mid to late next year. Because, like I said, the evidence is on the table. Look, we may not like IG Pie. He's a very, people have said he's very intelligent and he knows what he's doing at times. And sometimes some of the decisions he's made, let's be honest, may have been a positive, may have been a very, may have been done in a positive way, and maybe some of the decisions he's made may have garnered favor with consumers like us. We don't know it. But the fact is, what he's trying to do here is not garnering favor. And then on top of that, with Trump making some of the decisions he's making, and people discussing and trying to discuss and meet and work out a solution to impeach him, here's what happens to IG Pie. If Trump, let's say, gets impeached within the next year, maybe the year after, before the election, and Pence is in charge, any decision Trump has made could relatively become null and void. In other words, because he's made decisions under a controversial run as president or reign as president, the Congress, the House of Representatives, the Senate, can null and void any decision he's made after his impeachment. They could if they wanted to, which means they can null and void IG Pie as chairman. And I think that's what a lot of people have to look at as well, is if Trump goes, any decision he's made while in office could go as well. And that includes IG Pie as chairman. And I think we have to look at that. That IG Pie may not be chairman for long if, let's say, House of Representatives, Congress, and all that get their way and impeach Trump from office. Because any decision he makes could become null and void. Any. I mean, let's say you watch your favorite shows. Some shows have authority figures, right? And authority figures will make decisions that sometimes people don't like and they're against, no matter how determined the people are to make sure these decisions don't happen, they'll still make them, try to get them into law. But when that authority figure is removed from power, impeached, if you will, then some of the decisions, if not most of the decisions, become null and void, or if chosen. Even people that they appoint to a certain position. So if Trump was to be impeached, which many members of the House of Representatives, many members of Congress, many people of the Senate, many people all around in any political venue want to see happen, then decisions that he's made could go along with him. In other words, IG Pie could be out of power. He could be. And that this decision to repel net neutrality could go up in smoke, even before it becomes a reality. But again, that's only if, let's say, Trump was to be impeached, and that's only if, after his impeachment, Congress, representatives, and all that would decide to null and void any decisions he's made since his first day in office. But again, that's only if. But the point I'm making here is the fact that even if this vote passes in the next 3 hours and 4 minutes, even if this vote passes, we're still going to win in the end. Because like I said, everything, every association, group, organization, politician, grand attorneys, people that are against this, the ALCU, FM, you name it, Internet Association, the organizations, like I said, Republicans, Democrats, Independents, you name it, everybody that has some political say and some say in power in communications that's for net neutrality, including services like Netflix, Walmart, Target, Amazon, you get Hulu, you get the idea. They will all be on the ready. And they will be all on the ready either the day after, or they'll be ready a little after the first of the year to make a move and get this taken down before it becomes a reality. So that even if before, they'll maybe even try to get something done or something accomplished before the federal registration decides to try to sign off on it. They will be on the ready. They will be ready to go maybe as early as a little after the first of next year. Do not be surprised. Do not be surprised. And again, when Ajit Pai says there are risks, it's not just the risk. Like I'm saying, it's not just the risk of what he knows internet providers could do, despite this whole agreement with the FTC to police the internet to make sure providers don't go against the word, or they don't deceive, or they don't break the promises or the agreements. Da da da. He knows there's a risk that the providers will try to find a way. He knows it, but it's not just the risk that it's not just that risk either. It's the risk that the other risk that I can sense, and I think a lot of us see in here coming out of him is he knows the risk is that the risk he's taking is that even if they get this vote passed, even if this plan gets voted in, the risk is it's not that it's a risk that the risk he's taking is it's going to be a waste of people's time voting for this because in the end it's not going to do anything. And that risk is he knows, and that major risk, and that risk again, it's not just what he knows that the ISPs can do and the trouble they could cause, but he knows that the risk from a legal standpoint is he's risking his job, he's risking his trust, Trump's trust in him, he's risking the trust of his federal FCC board members, he's risking everything, and he knows it's a risk that's going to blow up in his face, and it's going to hurt him in the end, which is why even though he may win this round, this battle, he's not going to win the war because there's too much evidence going up against him. There's too much evidence going up against his plan. And the timing is probably the worst timing for it to happen. Not just because it's Christmas time, no. The timing's happen. It's the worst timing because of the FTC situation with AT&T and all these evidence of these fake comments being put in there. Look, the guy is what, of India descent? And no offense against India people. No offense. But one thing any of us that have worked with India people or people of India descent will realize, any of us that have worked with them, and again, no offense to the India people, no offense, but any of us that have worked with them currently or in the past realize that they're very determined people, that they will not let anything stand in the way. I work with a couple of people that are of India descent that when we're asked to do credit cards, they will do whatever it takes to get a credit card done. Whether the customer is approved for it or they're not, they will do whatever it takes to get that done. They are determined people. They will not let anything get in the way. And that's what Ajit Pai is doing. Even though he knows the risk the risk he is taking here by getting this passed, as only to have it blow up in his face in the future, in the next year or so, because of his ancestral background, he's a very determined person. And again, this is nothing against India people. It's nothing against them. All right? Nothing against them whatsoever. But because of his background, his authenticity, if you will, background, he has that determined focus to get things done and not let things stand in his way. That's why, despite the fact that people point out all this evidence and point out this and that and whatever, the only reason he's saying we're desperate and we don't understand and stuff like that is because he is not letting anything stand in his way of making this happen. That's why. That's why. That's why he's not letting it happen. And there are people of any authenticity, whether it's India background, white background, Mexican, African American, you name it, that whether it's in their family genes or whether it's in their authentic, whether it's in the racial background or whatever it is, there will be people that will not listen to what others say because they're determined to be right. And when they're determined to be right, that's when things blow up in the face. There have been many politicians, political figures throughout history that no matter how many times people have told them what they're doing is wrong or what they plan to do is wrong, they are so determined to say that they are right that they won't listen. And in the end, they find out they were wrong, that they were wrong about the things, that what people were telling them was correct. And again, nothing against the India people, nothing against them. I work with people of India descent. My mom works with India descent, and we're friends. We get along great. But the point is, from a racial, if not authenticity background, they've always been determined people. They've always been determined people that want to get the job done and get it done no matter what people say, and they're not going to let things stand, anyone or anything stand in the way. And that's the fact. That's the fact. And that's why he's saying that nothing's going to delay the vote because of his autistic background. And again, no offense to the India people, nothing against them. But that's how, some of them are. Not all of them, but some of them are. Again, I'm not saying white people, white people of white descent, Mexican descent, African American descent, Portugal descent, you name it. I'm not saying that we don't have parts of us from a racial or autistic background that shows that we're determined, that we will do whatever it takes to get something done and not let nothing stand in our way. Because we do. There's a lot of us that are like that. And that's the kind of person that IG Pi is, racial background, authenticity background, or not. He is a person that will not let things stand in his way. He will not listen. One time I made a comparison to Vince McMahon of WWE. Despite people saying that Roman Reigns is not fit to be the face of the company, or is not fit to be in the main event, or he's not fit to be champion, despite improvement and all that, he just doesn't have that it factor yet. He doesn't have that certain piece of the puzzle that's necessary to make him a top guy, or whatever. Despite people's complaints, Vince is ignoring it. Vince is saying, "No, nope. You guys don't know what you're talking about. I know what I'm talking about. And Roman Reigns is the guy. Yes. And when he faces Brock Lesnar, it'll be just like Hogan and Andre or Hogan and Warrior. It'll be fantastic." That is that's how Vince McMahon is, and that's how IG Pie is. We could say, IG, look, what you want to do may sound good on paper, but do you understand the ramifications, the aftermath that's going to occur, and what could potentially happen? And he's more like, yeah, I understand, but you know what? You don't know and we could be right about what we're saying, but he could be like, oh, yeah, oh, yeah, 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 whatever. You say that's what's going to happen, but you're wrong. That's not going to happen because you don't know what you're talking about. I do. I do. Oh, how much more money do I got? How much money are you going to pay me, Verizon? You know, that's the thing. The similarities, the only difference, according to a lot of people, is he's like, oh, you don't know what you're talking about. Excuse me. How much you gonna pay me now, Verizon? That's pretty much it. And the only reason he's reluctantly backpedaling a little bit right now, even though he's still determined to vote in the Repel, is because he's getting that pressure. It's like I said in my live stream during my lunch hour a couple of days ago. I said the only reason he's come up with this plan to partner with the FTC to police the internet and make sure ISP providers keep true to their word and promises and agreements is because the pressure is on him. He may say it's not, but it is. That's why he let it slip in that HBO interview that there are risks. And again, like I said, it's not a risk because of what ISPs are capable of doing. it's a risk. It's a risk of his future, his trust that the FCC puts in him, his trust that Trump puts in him. It's his future in general overall. Because he knows that, yeah, I may win this battle, but you'll say, because what I'm trying to say is he knows that, hey, I may win this battle, but I'm probably going to end up risking everything in a losing effort to try to make this a reality. Because he's going to have, here's the thing, IGPI is going to have to have a strong reasoning why he's making this happen. Strong reasoning. He's going to have a strong, legitimate case as to why this has to happen. Okay? And if he doesn't come up with one, when they go to court and everything, pretty much all the evidence thrown against him, this plan is going to backfire. Because the furthest it may be federal registration, but that's it. It ain't going to get any further. Because, like I said, you look at the timeline between now, next year, and September of next year when Comcast agreement expires. Look between basically the next 9 months, and I guarantee you what we fear is going to dissipate. It's going to dissipate. And it's going to dissipate because Court of Appeals is not the Supreme Court, and the House of Representatives and Congress, they're all going to look at this evidence. They're all going to look at what's going on. They're going to be like, we're not letting this happen. We're not letting this happen. And again, look at the other possibility as to where this could end up blowing up in his face. Look at the other possibility. The other possibility being the fact that if members of the House of Representatives, which is a huge house and a huge majority of representatives, as well as members of Congress and Senate, get their way in probably trying to find evidence to impeach Trump, then IGPI goes with him, or possibly goes with him. Because, like I said earlier, any decision that a leader or a president or king or whatever decisions they make could possibly, in the hands of Congress and representatives, become null and void. So IGPI's decision to repel the internet, let's say Trump gets impeached, could become null and void because IGPI could get removed as the chairman by whoever, by either Pence, if Pence takes over as president, or by Congress or the representatives. He could get removed. And even by law, he could be removed. The fact is, yes, in the next 3 hours and 20 minutes, the future will be changed. We'll either keep net neutrality, and maybe there'll be a legislation and law written in that it can't be messed with, or we're going to be on the first steps, or we're going to be just wetting our feet, or we, along with everybody I've mentioned that's ready to go to courts about this, are going to be just wetting our feet on that battlefield, on that legal battlefield. But when I say in the end we're going to win, I mean it. Because everybody has pointed out the evidence. They have said IGPI does not have a leg to stand on. He may get what he wants today, but in the end, it's going to blow up in his face. And I think everybody knows it. And I think he knows that. And everybody voting for net neutrality to be gone, they know that. So they just better be ready for a huge court battle. Because like one article said, it's going to be deja vu all over again. And like another article said earlier, by a congressman said this best, who's supporting net neutrality, that in the end we're going to win anyway. So think of it this way, The silver lining is we'll still have 9 months of regular net neutrality with maybe a few quirks here and there, or at least attempts at them. We'll still have the internet as we know it, and hopefully we'll have it a lot longer than that. So, and again, don't be surprised if net neutrality remains even after court battles. Did you have your providers come out and say, oh yeah, the reason we made those extensions to the agreements is because we knew net neutrality was going to stay. Yeah, we knew they were going to stay, and we were all for net neutrality. You're going to have a change of tone, guarantee it. And as far as trying to block states from doing net neutrality rules themselves, that's not going to hold up because every state has the right to create their own laws. Everybody knows that. And what's going to happen is, I live in California. There are people that live in Texas. Those are two of the biggest states that if they support net neutrality, they're going to have a majority of the vote favor state protection for net neutrality. And every other state's going to follow. So in the end, even if net neutrality, even if the vote passes, which a lot of people feel it will, we're still going to win. Still going to win in the end. And because of all the evidence against them and everything that I've mentioned. So let me know what you guys think. Thank you all for watching live. I appreciate it because this is an important issue. We need to be ready for the inevitable. We need to be ready for the inevitable, and all I could say is whatever happens, it happens. It's like my mom said, God has a reason for everything. And if God has a reason for this vote happening, God has a reason for it to be vetoed next year. God has a plan. God has a plan, and we just got to give it to the Lord above. Pray and pray hard that whatever decision is made is going to be for the benefit of the people of this country and not for the detriment. So let me know what you guys think down below. Thank you all for watching live. Thank you all for watching post live. I really appreciate it. This is a huge topic. But like I said, even if this vote, even if it passes, then you know, pretty much it doesn't guarantee that Occupy is going to win. It just means that we're going to win. Because even if it passes, we're still going to win in the end. Because of everything I've mentioned, everything else, everybody else has mentioned. So that's really all I could say, folks. So thank you all for watching live. I really appreciate it. Comment down below. Video responses are greatly appreciated. And that's really all I can say, folks, because honestly, this needs to come to an end. This this whole, whether or not net neutrality is going to remain, this issue needs to end. And whether it ends with a court decision vetoing the plan to repeal net neutrality, net neutrality, whether the courts veto it next year along with the Congress and House of Representatives, it needs to stop. It needs to stop. And no matter who takes over after Occupy, or even if Occupy tries to attempt to go at it again, this needs to stop because nobody should decide what we do. We have freedom of speech. We have the freedom to do what we want when we want. And hopefully, one Republican on the FCC side will realize what's possibly going to go down, and hopefully will make the right choice to vote against the Repel. So let me know what you guys think down below. Comment if you like. I greatly appreciate hearing what you guys have to say, and I'll talk to y'all later.